Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Salutations, everyone. I can hear me now too.
Okay.
Hello. Hey, we're just running a smidge late here. There's big traffic today. So, hey, welcome to Dr. Judy WTF. I am your host as usual, Walt Lusk, and in studio is as wonderful as the illustrious Judy Rosenberg. We have an amazing show today. We are on our series, Hole in the Soul and Healing Human Disconnect. We are talking about the 9 panels of Dr. Judy's Mind Map, Be the Cause. And today we're going to be doing panel number 2. And as usual, we're going to shrink ATTUNE. It's going to be an interesting one relative to our topic. And this is a call-in show. So if you felt abandoned, since we're really going to talk about abandon theory today, call in, or if you don't want to be abandoned, call in as well. You know, we always say here, don't explode or implode, but unload. And the number is 323-843-2826. So I thought I would start with a couple of interesting little articles just for fun that are kind of this, Judy. The first one is, young adults say technology can dehumanize. They interviewed 12,000 teenagers aged 18 to 24 about what technology is more or less personal. And what's interesting is 90% of adults questioned the poll admitted innovations in technology make life easier, but 60% of the people rely too much on it and can be dehumanizing. And they asked people in Brazil, China, France, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, and of course the United States. So I thought that was interesting. They like it, but they feel it could be dehumanizing. And this just in this week, put down that phone, parents. It can be affecting your kids. Researchers in Boston have observed 55 different groups of parents and young children eating in fast food restaurants. The study found that a majority pulled out their mobile devices right away, and their kids tended to act up more. Gee, why am I not surprised? If I can't get your attention in a positive way, I'm going to seek it in a negative way. It says that parents spend an average of 11 hours a day using electronic devices.
That's
at that
insane.
time,
I never knew that the figure was that high.
That's
11
astronomical.
hours a day.
Well, I mean, that could be anything from a radio to a television,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
You know, don't turn off your radio. Don't turn off our show. But
Yeah, we're part of it now.
you bet we are.
But hopefully healing the human disconnect.
Yes, we are. But it takes away from face-to-face communication, which helps kids learn behavior, right? Kids in preschool, kindergarten, no longer able to read social cues from other human beings because we're all staring at our cell phones, right? I mean, there's only, 6 billion cell phones in the world or something? Too much time on technology can also leave an emotional impact on your child. We get such a limited amount of time with our kids in the day. We need meaningful conversations. Texting doesn't count. Dinner is a good time to have family time, so keep the phone away. Duh.
Yeah,
11 hours.
Obvious good ones.
And you wonder why people can't sleep. You know, you stare at this bright television or your bright cell phone, and then you turn it off and you expect to shut your brain off right then and right there.
Not happening. No.
It's not going to happen. And we're sleep deprived as a country, maybe even a world, right?
So to continue our series of the Hole in the Soul and Healing Human Disconnect, which is our life work and the work that I do in my office every day. And just recently I've had a lot of cases of women in particular complaining that their significant other is on the computer or on the phone, and so they're showing up and needing to connect and needing to have that intimate time, and then the answer is, hang on, I'm still on the computer, I'm still on the phone. And this can be very, very disconnecting because ultimately we still need the same things that we needed from our infancy, which is You know the rap?
Human connection.
Right. In the form of?
All ways, shape, and forms.
Right.
From physical to emotional to even just conversation, right?
Right.
Ooh, baby, ooh, baby.
And the eye contact is so vital. And I do appreciate that when people come in and they complain about the pain that they feel when their significant other may be talking to them, but then they're not doing something that I call ingesting, digesting, and manifesting their communication, which is kind of like a meal. You know, you take a meal in and you swallow the meal and you're digesting this meal, and then you're manifesting it in terms of energy and nutrients absorbed into the body and better health and so on. It's the same thing with a conversation.
Well, what if you get heartburn?
Well, that's another story. Okay, so what if you get communication heartburn? What is communication heartburn but not a very, very well digested meal? And this is something that I go over with my couples all the time. So, for example, just the other day, a couple comes into the office and she's going on and on about what happened during her day. And before she's really finished putting forth a communication, he changes the topic.
Sharing about her day and unloading about her day, good, bad, or otherwise.
Right, and he's already on to another topic, and then she feels completely dropped. She feels that she's not mirrored, and it's a very, very painful feeling. And this theme seems to come up very often, not only from men injuring women, but also women injuring their men by not really fully receiving the conversation. And
well, that's how ADD of them,
isn't it?
You know,
right?
My ex-wife gave me a book about ADD once, and I kind of got around to not reading it.
I call it affect deprivation disorder. How's that? Okay?
Affect. Okay.
Affect. Because you're depriving them of the affect. You're depriving them of the emotion and the attention.
Well, then if you're going to expand affect, then it would be affection.
Thank you, Walt. Nice.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so
I'll be here all week. It's good.
Yeah, good. I need you here, okay? Because I need the connection also. It would be really, really horrible to do this show with an empty chair, although they use empty chair techniques all the time in my field of psychotherapy. I sure would not want an empty chair radio show with me not having you as host. So.
Yeah, host and also run the board. So there you go.
Very much so. Yes.
One thing I want to say is we're going to be doing a 9-panel series, as I mentioned, on Dr. Judy's system, mind map system. It's 9 panels. You can go to www.drjudywtf.com. WTF stands for What the Freud. Okay. And last week we did panel 1, which. You want to elaborate just in one sentence or a minute or less what panel 1 is?
This is a system. Yeah, this is review. This is a system that I created to heal human disconnect, and it starts by taking a look at the cause of the disconnect, which is the mother-infant disconnect, because that's the first person we disconnect from. Birth is a disconnect, isn't it? Yes. Snipping the umbilical cord is a disconnect. And then when mother doesn't allow for the connection to happen by eye contacting the infant, by giving skin to skin, the breast milk, the mirroring, the attunement, the emotional goodies that person needs to thrive, then what happens is that the baby develops a reaction to that wound, and we're going to talk about that today. So the whole process is the top part of the panel, which is the way problems are formulated, is the cause of the problem, and then the reaction to the problem, and then next week we're going to talk about the encoding of the problem, which we alluded to a few episodes ago regarding negative core beliefs, because we then take all of these reactions, we take all of the wounds, and we ingest them, and then we encode them into the fiber of our being, and then that becomes the blueprint of our emotional health or lack thereof.
And a couple of weeks ago, we did a great show on self-talk.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's kind of a byproduct of this. What in the world do you say to yourself? Are you yourself's best friend? And if your real best friend heard what you say to yourself, would they respect you in the morning?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
We all are guilty of it, but it's tough stuff.
So all of that lack of self-respect and all of that demean, devalue, and destroy of the self comes from the blueprint of not ingesting the light or the nutrients, the emotional ingredients necessary for the formation of a healthy human being. So today we're going to talk about panel 2, and we often allude to the concept of the double dungeon.
Yes,
which
the double,
go ahead,
the double
Walt.
dungeon. I mean, the show could be called Reaction to the Wound Because Mommy and Daddy Said So, the double dungeon in the not so wonder years.
I love that. Yes.
Basically, in infancy, our inner world is a reflection of the relationship we did or didn't have with Mom. And our outer world is in direct relationship to what we have or don't have with our dad. If you had a lousy mom, however that's defined, and a lousy dad, or a non-existent mom or dad, both, then you are in what's called, that Judy calls, the double dungeon.
And that specifically means that you're not getting any light from Mom, and then Dad is there as a first representative of the outside world, because Dad is the one that's supposed to nourish the nourisher so that Mom can therefore have more to give, and he's the one who's supposed to mitigate the damages that Mom can inflict on the child. And panel 2 really is about hope that the damages will be mitigated by the father figure, by the outside people outside of the mother infant dyad.
And you've always liked my definition of hope, HOPE, help other people escape. So that's what Dr. Judy does in therapy, is help you escape all the trauma from way back, because it's true. And when you follow through with our different panels, it is not really how you start that matters, it's how you finish. And we can rewrite a lot of that, quote, DNA to make sure you are a more whole person.
And that is a lot of how I see my responsibility in the therapeutic process, is that I'm helping people to take what I call their infiltrations of the past, the negativity, the darkness from the past, and let the poison out of that piece of it, so that they can basically reconnect to the light of who they are. Because when we are born whole and complete in terms of mental health. Yes. Unless we're dropped on our head, unless there's some kind of organic problem here, we are sponges ready to receive the light. And if we're not receiving the light, then we're going to shut down, and we're going to have all kinds of reactions, which is what we're going to talk about today. And Dr. John Bowlby, psychiatrist from England, I would love to have his son, Sir Richard, call in today. I shot him over an email and hoping that he'll call in, but it's probably
now
4 o'clock
in the morning.
Okay, so Sir Richard, I'll forgive you if you don't call in. Anyway, this work of attachment theory is based on a lot of work by the Bowlby family on taking a look at how babies attach to their primary caregivers, and if the attachment is not secure, if it's disorganized, if it's anxious, if it is what we call an insecure base of attachment, which comes when there's no security and no real tight bond between mother and the infant, then the baby will go into all kinds of reactions. And so you can imagine a baby who is neglected will eventually start doing what, Walt? What do you think?
Well, reacting.
Right, but how? Okay,
well,
so baby's in the crib, and remember the Ferber method, which we so fondly talk about, letting the baby cry it out, which is one of the surest ways of creating an anxiously attached child, and a sure way of helping my profession gain more patients. Okay, so if you want to set your child up to be a patient, then all you have to do is let your baby cry it out and not attend to the baby.
And one of the stuff I found is there's basically 3 or 4 different types of early emotional bonds, or lack thereof. Attachment basically is an emotional bond to another person, and if it's all goofed up, of course Dr. Bowlby developed this, lasting psychological connectiveness between human beings. And I'm going to touch, I know Jesus knows, but it even impacts dating in a big way.
Sure.
I mean, huge,
Right.
huge way.
Right.
So, and obviously other relationships, but that's kind of an important one. So there's 3 styles: secure attachment, ambivalent attachment, and avoidant insecure attachment, right? So that's the first 3, and attachment matters just because, you know, if we're attached and sort of secure, then we perform better in school, we have more successful social relationships, we experience less depression, and of course less anxiety.
Right. And what happens to the others?
They kind of got the
The
short end of the deal.
ambivalent
Yeah, they're very
attachment.
ambivalent. Yeah.
Right.
So secure attachment basically is marked by distress when separated from the caregiver, and joy when the caregiver returns. So when frightened, secure, attached children will seek comfort from caregivers. So that's kind of the epitome, I think, of, you know, abandonment, right? Because it's attachment or unattachment.
Right, it's a healthy response. So if a baby and a mother are attached properly and they get separated from each other, then they'll both want to, they'll both, not only the baby but the mother goes into distress also if the separation is too long. So that's healthy attachment, and then that leads to, as Walt was saying, healthy cognitive development, healthy emotional development, healthy physical development, because the baby will be more hardy and more sustainable and healthier in mind, body, soul.
And if you want to become attached to Dr. Judy on the show and get on the couch with Dr. Judy, you can, because, you know, it's really getting kind of quiet in here.
Yeah, please call in. This is a call-in show, so...
And there we go. There's the crickets.
Yay!
And the number is area code 323...
The crickets are calling.
843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. The next characteristic is ambivalent attachment. So don't be ambivalent about calling. Become very distressed when a parent leaves. The attachment is relatively uncommon, affecting only about 7 to 15% of folks. But these children cannot depend on their mother or their primary caregiver to be there when the child is needed. So again, this
or
is
needy.
Or needy.
Right.
Right.
When the mother's needed and the child is needy. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
So that's the ambivalent attachment.
Right, and that's real confusing, because it's sort of like sometimes mother's there, sometimes mother's not there, and so they don't quite know how to negotiate it, and they're torn. They don't have a secure world that they can depend on. And one of the developmental stages is trust versus mistrust. So if you can't trust the world,
exactly.
if your mother is your world and your father is your world, and you have these 2 pillars that are supposed to hold you up and give you balance and security, and you don't have this balance and security, then how do you think you're supposed to feel about the rest of the world?
Well, it says here they show no preference between a caregiver and a complete stranger, which I think's like, wow. I mean, from one extreme to the other.
Right.
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 The abusive, neglectful caregivers. So they learn to avoid seeking help in the future, because they don't know if they're going to get it, right?
Yeah, and it's a real state of hopelessness.
Yeah.
And once you get to that hopelessness stage, then this happens with orphans, where they shut down and they just don't really respond. And many orphans will die from failure to thrive. And you can be dead because of emotionally being detached from your caregiver.
And then the last one that we have here is a disorganized attachment, right? Disorganized attachment often displays confusing mix of behavior and may seem disorganized, dazed, and confused. Children may both avoid or resist the parent. So that's like they're just detached, right?
Right. Right. So that doesn't allow for the brain to form properly, because we know that what we need is consistency and we need the security. There's a lot of brain research that's been done around the primitive brain. We call it the reptilian brain, which is the amygdala, and the amygdala is the fight-flight area of the brain. And so when we're not safe and secure, that fight-flight is consistently triggered, and so we resort to this primitive, and we don't know how to calm ourselves down and soothe ourselves, because that soothing and calming comes from the soothing and calming that the parents do for us. So if they're not performing our function for us, then we don't know what to do with that, and therefore we develop all kinds of defense mechanisms around that, which we will talk about later. But the reactions are severe, anywhere from crying and distress and fear and loneliness, and eventually shutting down and having really no reaction as a way of coping with caregivers that are not there.
Well, it's interesting if you carry this forward into dating real quick, because this adult romantic relationships, they found another entity, some entities, a couple of Hazen and Schaefer in 1987, said that the emotional bond that develops between adult romantic partners is partially a function of the same motivational system, the attachment behavior system that gives rise to the emotional bond between infants and their caregivers.
The blueprint.
It's definitely a blueprint. They said that the relationship between infants and caregivers is a relationship between adult romantic partners share in the following features, and there's like 6 of them. They both feel safe when the other is nearby and responsive. Both engage in close, intimate bodily contact. Both feel insecure when the other is inaccessible. Both share discoveries with another. Both play with one another's facial features. Again, we talked about earlier, you know, if you're sitting there staring at your cell phone or on the computer all the time, or staring at television, I mean, what facial features are there, right?
Well, the stuff on the screen, you know.
Right. Both play with one another's facial features and exhibit a mutual fascination and preoccupation with one another, and both engage in baby talk.
And doesn't that sound like something from Cause? Meaning, doesn't that replicate the mother-infant connection? Mom and baby play with each other's face. Mom and baby feel safer when each other is around. Mom and baby go into distress when one is not around the other. So there's such a connect the dots here, Walt. There's
there surely is.
Such a parallel process. And I really want you guys to pick up the phone and please call in. And I want to hear about your guess at what your attachment style is and why you guess that to be so. And a lot of what I do in my work is I play psychological detective so that you can see from your relationships and how you're handling your relationships what kind of attachment style you have. I have known many people who are avoidant attachment, for example, and they don't want to form intimate relationships because these intimate relationships, let's say, for example, are smothering, or let's say, for another example, these emotional connections have been painful in some way so that they will avoid relationships, and that's the way they cope. And then there are other people on the opposite end of the spectrum, we may call them codependents, who are Klingons, and they can't get rid of their need to latch on and sponge off of and depend on a relationship. So you can see that the way that we've been blueprinted and the way we've been attached to now carries on into our relationships with our primary lovers, husbands, wives, friends, family members, children. Yeah.
Absolutely. So going back to the adolescent, I found something I thought we would discuss is 10 ways that attachment parenting makes discipline easier.
Okay.
Okay. So I thought that since, you know, raising parents is, childhood is a hostage situation, right, as we like to say.
Right.
So, and we're dealing with attachment, you know, more in infancy. So, you know, the benefits for, you know, not that we want to discipline our children, but, you know, we got to have some order and some
and boundaries.
And some boundaries, for goodness sakes.
Okay.
So attachment parenting promotes mutual sensitivity. In other words, all I have to do is look at him disappropriately and he stops misbehaving.
Okay, so there's a connection. So there's that sort of a nonverbal communication going on, and a look is worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely it is.
So this parent obviously isn't playing all day on his or her cell phone, is connecting with her son or his son, daughter, and is reading the cues, and the child is reading the cues of the parent.
And remember, if mommy or daddy, if you're driving in the car and you can see your child in the rearview mirror and they're not behaving real well, and you just look in the rearview mirror and they see your face in the rearview mirror and they're not staring at their cell phone, might work too.
Yeah, like that.
So number 2 on 10 ways attachment parenting makes discipline easier. Attachment parenting produces people who care. This one was interesting. Groups of people being insensitive to the needs and the rights of another group. Okay.
Because there's an empathy, right?
Right.
In order for you to learn empathy, you have to be empathized with. And if the parent is attuned to you, and a parent cares enough to look into your eyes and see that you need boundaries, or that you're in distress, or that you need soothing, or you need anything, and the responsiveness is there, then you then adapt that and adopt that into your own way of dealing with the world.
Here's a great quote. General Norman Schwarzkopf, if you guys remember, he was a general that did Desert Storm way back. So he's a general in the Army. I mean, can't get any higher than that. Quote, "Men who can't cry scare me. Many of the world's problems can be traced to folks who you don't care," right? So if you react and you're emotional, you're not weak.
And what's the opposite, do you think, of love?
Oh, it's apathy.
That's right.
It's
and
not hate.
That's
it's
right.
apathy.
Apathy, and that's what we're breeding today. We're
Absolutely.
breeding apathy, and General Schwarzkopf is talking about apathy. People who are so shut down and they're so disconnected from their own feelings that it's scary, because those are the kinds of people who go rogue. They can tremendously explode because they're not connected to themselves. They're not empathically connected to anyone. So what's it to them to shoot up a school?
Right,
or,
and then
or what have you.
And then what happens when people then ask the question, WTF?
Right, WTF, right?
So
and this is
apathy.
definitely a WT Freud, because it's being
Yes.
repeated in many, many areas of the world.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Third is attachment parenting organizes babies, okay? And it has sort of the rhythmic walk. Familiar baby's time in the womb has a calming effect. When the baby is cuddled close to his mother's breast, his heartbeat reminds him and sends the womb. So the baby knows where he belongs. Also, the breastfed babies show that energy efficient heart rates and sleep patterns are much better. They're more organized, and their engine's like in tune.
Right, and I do this experiment that I talk about on many episodes, where I will take a cell phone and start fidgeting.
Right in the middle during therapy.
Right, I'll start fidgeting with my cell phone as an experiment to show kids and adults how human disconnect has a profound effect on organizing the mind. And what happens is, if we have the direct connect in the therapeutic process, and then I break that therapeutic connection by picking up a cell phone, you will see that people will go into a whole nother state. They'll get anxious, the thoughts will become quickly disorganized, they can't stay on point, and they really start going down the distress tube quickly. And so after I stop
matter of seconds.
Yeah, and so after I stop the experiment, I point out to them that this is an example of human disconnect, and it's happening all over, every day, every moment of the day. So if we get one thing right, then we need to remember to value human connection over valuing the need to return the message that can wait on the cell phone, or check the Facebook contacts that are over there. And why be over there when you have someone right here in front of you that you can eye contact and truly connect with?
Well, what's funny, I was just thinking in the news this week, President Obama is in Japan, and they pulled out a robot, and President Obama, actually bowed down to the robot.
Why?
Don't know. Doesn't matter.
I don't get it. But
doesn't matter.
Okay.
The fact that he did is just crazy.
I don't get it.
He's connecting with non-intimate objects as opposed to the people.
Okay.
Crazy stuff. Number 5, attachment parenting promotes trust. Right? Authority is vital to discipline. Authority must be based on trust. It's crucial for the baby to trust that he will be kept safe. Attachment parented baby learns to trust the one person who's strongly connected to him or her. And as a result, if they trust his mother to meet his needs, he will also look to her to help him behave.
And trust is a big deal in relationships, and people
it certainly
recapitulate this break of trust in all kinds of things. We've talked about affairs, we've talked about lack of trust in terms of fiduciary breakage and trust. There's all kinds of ways that people break trust. And again, blueprint. If you don't develop trust in the first few months, years of life, then how can you replicate this in your primary relationships? You can't.
No, it's impossible.
Right.
It's hard. Number 6, attachment parenting promotes independence. The right balance between discipline and independence, because the connected child trusts his parents to help him feel safe, and he's more likely to feel secure exploring his environment.
And that's the key, exploring. When you have a sound base from which you can launch from,
A foundation.
Right, you can check back. You know, there's a stage of development where the baby checks back to see if mommy and daddy are there, and the more mommy and daddy are there, the more safe that child feels to go out there and explore. And it's up to the parent to create environments where the baby can really, really explore things like flushing the toilet and just seeing the water go down, or climb a ladder and know that they can fall on safe pillows around them, or be able to even fall and bump their head a little bit to understand that we need to learn. So we can't protect our children 100%, nor do we want to. Of course, we don't want them to burn their hand on a stove or injure themselves beyond repair, but children need to learn to keep away from sharp corners. They need to learn that surfaces are hard. They need to learn that they cannot touch hot objects. So by gradually approximating your child to learn under conditions that are not dangerous, but give enough feedback for the child to start integrating that there's an outside environment that they have to relate to. Because remember, the womb service, right, is pretty soft and it's pretty balanced, and everything is fluid, and it's like where we want to float around in. But the real world is a little harsher.
It sure is, and I've said for years that children are little scientists. People get mad. My kid was blah blah blah, and it's like they don't know.
Right.
They're big sponges, and they're little scientists, and sometimes I call them God's little spies. But they're checking it out. Like I had one parent many years ago says, well, you know what? I bought a baseball and a football and a bowling ball and a badminton, and my kid doesn't want to do any of that stuff. He's just, no, you as a parent exposed those things to your child, and as a result of them being exposed to it, now they know they aren't interested in those things. It's a process of elimination. You can't just hand them a football and expect them to go run a touchdown tomorrow.
And children like really simple objects. I know that parents like to go to the store and spend tons of money on the latest, but really what children like, they like a piece of paper and some crayon, non-toxic of course, or just a paint set, or they want boxes so that they can crawl in and out of the boxes, or they want to build with Legos, or they want to just play in the sandbox, or take a bucket and watch the sand pour out, or stick rocks in the sand. This is so basic, and you don't have to spend tons of money on toys.
They love a fort. Get a card table and some towels, and boom, now they've got a fort. Right? You can come in and you can come into their space and hang out, and they think you're really cool because you're in their fort. Right?
Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, how many of us got a big refrigerator or a big box or something? That's right. Kids want to play in it. They can make a window. It's a big toy.
And don't let them play with that refrigerator. They can lock themselves in and bingo, But yeah, that's right. They don't really, really need elaborate things.
No, they
it's
don't.
the concept. It's
Absolutely.
the concept of building and exploring and interacting with the world that they want.
And it helps them become more creative, because what can you do with a box? What can you do with a rubber band? What can you do with crayons and a piece of paper?
Right, and the best thing that you as a parent can do is to look and see what your child is doing, and let the child take pride in your having great admiration. Oh my God, look what you made. That's amazing. Yay! You put the crayon back in the bottle. Yay! Kids love that. It's called mirroring, and it's the best thing for the brain, because it really allows them to relax their brain and start integrating the world, rather than be in this disconnected, distressed state of being, and then nothing really gets learned. Because as I see it, when we put our children under distress, what happens is they become so emotional, and we're activating their emotional brain so much that they're too busy licking their emotional wounds to function in the world.
Or sometimes they get overstimulated.
That too.
Right? I mean, they're just staring. I mean, you got the TV going, the radio going, and I mean, it's like they can only absorb so much. And I had one daughter that she got really, really overstimulated, and she would just withdraw and go, okay, well, she's got overstimulated, and you have to go find her, and she would be in a quiet corner reading a book.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
With all the
I mean,
electronics
all
going,
stuff
we can
just
easily
jamming into these kids. They're big sponges, and there's just a point where they just overload.
That's right.
Overload.
So it's up to us to create boundaries and help them have not too much, not too little. It's like the 3 bears and the 3 chairs, you know, not too hard, not too soft, but just right. They can integrate this stuff.
And we've talked about this one. Again, we're talking about 10 ways attachment parenting makes discipline, but also life easier. Number 7, we've actually touched on already. Attachment parenting promotes intimacy, right? Look at them. You can spot them in a crowd. They're genuinely interested in other people.
Right.
They're attentive. They're being comfortable, connected to people that they are connected appropriately.
Yes.
Okay. Much of the child's future quality of life, mate, job satisfaction, and other, will depend upon the capacity for intimacy. Right. Connected kids grow up learning to bond with people rather than things. Right.
Right.
They carry a capacity for intimacy.
Right, and you can also see this. A lot of people that I treat because of job stress, and sometimes what they do is they recapitulate these horrible blueprints from the past within the work environment, and they pick bosses that are abusive, or they pick environments that are overwhelming, and then they blow a fuse, and they blow a fuse because they don't have boundaries, and they don't know how to say that's enough. I can't handle another project. I need to leave at 5 o'clock, and that's what we agreed on in our contract. And so when people don't have the blueprint of boundaries, they get themselves into situations where there are no boundaries, and then they get sick and actually end up sometimes
having
in the hospital. Having a breakdown.
Yep.
Right.
Attachment parenting builds better behaved brains. The tangled electrical wire called neurons need to be connected, when the child develops, and that also promotes organization. Right? Attentive parenting creates behavioral equilibrium that not only organizes the child's physiology but her psychological development as well. A brain that is developed right makes right decisions and right connections. And if not, then you're going to get kids that are have developed problems later on, whether it's hyperactivity, distractibility, impulsiveness, ADHD. Okay, the connected high-need child is easier to discipline because he's more responsive to his parents. Again, they're more adaptive. So and changing to life circumstances. And today's world is changing radically fast.
And speaking of the brain, there's this function called the corpus callosum, and the corpus callosum separates the right brain from the left brain. And so in order to integrate the two halves, we need some sort of literally a piece of mind, so that
What if I want to give you a piece of my mind?
Yeah, like that, right. Okay, now you messed up my brain, Walt. Okay, so this is what parents do. They mess up their children's brain, and so the creativity goes, the cognitive, logical functioning goes also, because they're too busy in fight and flight. They're too busy surviving to just emotionally exist.
Number 9 is attachment parenting help you discipline the difficult child. We all have seen the high need child, right? Well, we want that. They're easier to discipline because they're more responsive to his parents, right? That's pretty obvious, but that's
right. So the more you put into your child during the first few years of life, the easier a child you're going to have.
And that
child is going to be delightful and playful and calm and have good boundaries and be less and less needy. And it's totally a myth to think that if you push your child into independence too soon and let them cry it out and just leave them so that they develop strength to hack it out on their own, what you're really doing is you're creating dependency, not independence.
Interesting, right?
Yes,
I didn't get it as a parent, so now I'm gonna do the same thing to you. Well, for crying out loud, is that justification?
Right.
Exactly. Or an excuse.
Right.
And then lastly, attachment theory, parenting encourages obedience, right? Obey means to listen attentively. The attached child wants to please Even the iron-willed child bends to the will of the mother or father who operate on that parenting principle.
Especially when that appeasing or pleasing, shall we say, sorry, not appeasing, when the pleasing is built on trust and goodwill and not coercion and,
intimidation.
Intimidation, right? Then it's truly it's a beautiful relationship based on trust.
So that's the 10 ways attentive parenting makes not only discipline easier, but makes life easier. And
beautiful.
We're approaching the time where we're going to shrink that tune, but I wanted to mention that next week we're going to take a little divergence because we're going to be a very, very special guest. It's Dr. Stan Tatkin. He's written a book. One of them's called Wired for Love.
I love the title. I refer to your book all the time, Stan. I want you to know that. And my patients are writing down the title and they're buying it, so hopefully the sales of your book is already going up.
They're creeping up.
Yes.
So we're going to take it. So he'll be here next week talking about how we are truly wired for love. It's a fascinating book. It's a little bit of a technical read, but you got to start somewhere and lay a foundation.
And also, I just want to make a couple of announcements. My book, Lucid Darkness, available on
Kindle and through Amazon. So just either punch in Lucid Darkness, or you can punch in Dr. Judy Rosenberg with an E, B-E-R-G, and you'll find it.
Yes, and also for those of you who cannot connect to me by coming to see me in my office in Sherman Oaks, please know that I'm opening up my practice for phone therapy, and it's been really, really effective. I oftentimes ask my patients, so did you get enough value out of the phone session? And yes, because we can really, really concentrate on the system, and we can really quite use that hour to go from the problem through the process to the solution, identifying the wound, and now you understand that the wound or the motherboard, if not handled properly, will create reactions in panel 2 that end up as insecure and ambivalent and disorganized attachments that then get projected into relationships amongst your friends, your significant others.
So if you can hear Judy's voice and mine, you can call her and have some amazing time. I guarantee you, I'm guaranteeing it, 10 sessions will change your life. And if not, I'll give you your money back. So now it's time for us to shrink that tune, and we're going to do a song called Madness by Muse. What happens is I read the lyrics, and Dr. Judy interprets it through her psychological mind map, and then, of course, we play the song. So next week, stay tuned for an amazing guest about being wired for love. Tell all your friends and lovers. And if you want to get a hold of us, or get a hold of Dr. Judy, you can do info@drjudywtf.com. And, of course, you can pull our shows on Stitcher and iTunes as well. And so we appreciate everyone who continues to listen to our show. It's just been amazing, and we're now in the process of going to expand it. And we're looking for sponsors. So if anybody wants to be a sponsor of this amazing, growing show, let us know. info@drjudywtf.com. So Muse has a song called Madness. I can't get these memories out of my mind, and some kind of madness has started to evolve. And I tried so hard to let you go, but some kind of madness is swallowing me whole.
And of course, I selected this song not only because I love it so much, I think the tune is amazing. I also selected it because when we are not attuned to, when we're not attended to emotionally, we experience this disconnect, and it makes us mad. And so the memories of childhood, the imprints of childhood get infiltrated into the mind, and if it's not positive, then this madness starts to evolve, and the desire to hold on to mother, the desire to hold on, and the inability to hold on is what I refer to as the hole in the soul.
And I finally seen the light. And I finally realized what you mean. And now I know, now I need to know, is this real love? Or is it just madness keeping us afloat? And when I look back at all the crazy fights we had, like some kind of madness was taking control.
So we're always present to the light, and with all the talking that we do about disconnect, we have to know that our parents give us lots of light, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And so we'll talk more about the light as we move through the panels, because first we have to enter the darkness to get to the light, which is the theme of Lucid Darkness, my novel psychological thriller about a psychologist who creates a mind map to heal human disconnect. And so the person is reaching for the light and wants to know, is this real love? What kind of connection do I have with my primary caregiver, my first love object? Or is she just merely keeping me afloat? And then the crazy fights we have is the connect, disconnect that the baby and the mother struggle with all along. And of course, the inability of the baby to really hold on if there's too much disconnect and a loss of control.
And what's interesting is just about the light, there's only one thing that can expose the darkness and actually get rid of the darkness. There's only one thing, and it certainly isn't more darkness. It's only light. Right? Doesn't matter if it's a candle and starts out being turning into a laser beam, it's got to be light, right? And now I have finally seen the light, and I finally realized what you need. But now I've finally seen the end, and I'm not expecting you to care. And I've finally seen the light, and I have finally realized I need to love. I need to love.
Okay, so from the perspective of the mind map, baby realizes that they need the light intuitively, and mom realizes that the baby has needs, and she understands what those needs are. And so the end is kind of like the end of the attachment and the need for separation and individuation. And there is a need to separate, but there's also a need to stay attached, which is the love bond. I need to love.
Come to me just in a dream. Come on and rescue me. Yes, I know I can be wrong. Maybe I'm too headstrong. Our love is madness.
Right, and sometimes when this mad love, or let's call it love addiction, let's say, this addictive quality that we sometimes encounter in our adult life is a recapitulation to correct the emotional disconnect between mother and infant, and we do a what the Freud in our relationship. So we pick somebody that's kind of the mad love kind of love. People can call it limerence. They can call it the falling in love. And it's not really a falling in love, not what we think it is, but it's really a desire to repeat and to heal the wounds of the past. And so, much of it is very painful and chaotic and doesn't give us what we really need, which is the unconditional love and the balance.
Which is what life's all about, is having, giving, and receiving unconditional love.
Right, and let's not forget that the most powerful and underutilized force on the planet is
the light, unconditional love.
Right.
And that's our show. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. We're going to play the song now by Madness. It's Muse. And stay tuned next week for another installment. We'll take a divergence for having Wired for Love. So if you want to learn how to be wired for love, stay tuned. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Mad
Madness.
Out in the rain.